The middle of summer in a small, dusty village, the kind where afternoons moved slowly and the only sounds were the buzz of insects and the creak of old wooden doors. In one corner of a courtyard shaded by a neem tree lived a cat named Nazo. She was a sleek black and white cat with sharp eyes and a calm, thoughtful nature. She belonged to an old man named Shafik, who ran a small tea stall near the road. Nazo spent most of her days lying on the cool mud floor of the courtyard, her tail lazily flicking as she watched Shafik pour steaming cups of chai for travelers. She wasn't lazy, she just liked peace. The world outside the courtyard, with its noise and rush, didn't interest her much. But one afternoon, something small caught her attention. Near the edge of the wall, a tiny line of ants moved in perfect order, each carrying a crumb or grain much larger than themselves. Nazo watched, curious. She followed their path with her eyes as they disappeared into a small hole under a stone near the kitchen. She lowered her head close to the ground, studying them. "Strange creatures," she murmured. "So small, yet always in such a hurry." A voice replied, though very faint. "And you're so big, yet you seem to do nothing at all." Nazo blinked. "Who said that?" "Down here," came the voice again. One of the ants had stopped and was looking up at her, tiny antennae twitching. "You can talk?" Nazo asked, surprised. "Of course," the ant replied. "You just never bothered to listen." Nazo tilted her head. "And what's your name, little one?" "Bina," the ant said proudly. "I'm the leader of this column." Nazo chuckled. "Leader? You're smaller than the dust I shake off my paws." "Maybe," Bina replied calmly. "But even dust moves when we decide to carry it." That answer made Nazo pause. She watched as Bina and her group continued their work, climbing a wall, carrying bits of sugar, moving with coordination that seemed almost impossible for something so small. Over the next few days, Nazo found herself watching them often. Every morning, the ants would march out in a line, and by evening, they'd return to the hole under the stone. Sometimes she'd drop a few breadcrumbs nearby just to see how they managed to carry them. Bina would always come out first, inspecting the size, then signaling others to help. "You work too hard," Nazo said one morning. "Don't you ever rest?" "We rest at night," Bina replied, dragging a crumb twice her size. "But our world doesn't stop. Every bit we gather keeps our family alive." Nazo stretched, yawning. "Sounds exhausting. I prefer a nap in the sun." Bina laughed, a soft sound like the rustle of sand. "And yet, when the rains come, you'll hide under a roof. We'll be underground, safe with food for months." Nazo didn't have an answer to that. She flicked her tail and muttered, "Maybe you have a point." Weeks passed, and the weather began to change. The wind grew heavy and humid, and dark clouds rolled across the sky. Shafik, sensing the storm coming, began tying his tarpaulin over the stall. "Monsoon's near," he said to himself. That evening, the first drops fell. Nazo sat near the kitchen door, watching the ants hurry back toward their hole. But something was wrong. A small stream of rainwater was running through the yard, straight toward their nest. "Bina," Nazo called out. "You're home. It's flooding." Bina appeared at the edge of the stone, her tiny body soaked. "We're trying to move the eggs, but the water's too fast," she shouted. Nazo's heart skipped. Without thinking, she darted inside the kitchen, grabbed a dry leaf from the floor with her mouth, and ran back. She placed it near the nest, letting it form a little bridge over the flowing water. "Get on," she ordered. The ants climbed onto the leaf one by one, carrying their precious eggs. When the last one climbed up, Nazo gently dragged the leaf toward a dry patch near the stove. The ants scrambled off, shaking water from their tiny bodies. Bina looked up, her antennae trembling. "You saved us," she said. Nazo gave a small smile. "Just returning the favor. You've kept me entertained all summer." The storm raged through the night. Rain battered the roof, and thunder rolled across the fields. Nazo stayed near the stove, curling herself around the small group of ants to keep them warm. By morning, the rain had stopped. The courtyard was a mess, mud everywhere, puddles reflecting the gray sky. But the ants were safe. When Shafik opened the door, he chuckled softly at the sight. "Look at you, Nazo," he said. "Making new friends, are you?" Nazo meowed in response. watching as Bina's colony began rebuilding near the dry corner of the wall. Days turned into weeks again. The sun returned, and the courtyard dried. The ants rebuilt their tunnels, stronger than before. Nazo often lay nearby, half asleep, but keeping one eye open, just watching them work. Sometimes, Bina would climb up her paw and sit near her whiskers, talking softly about how the colony worked, how they stored food, cared for the young, and protected each other. "You live such a strange life," Nazo said one day. "All of you working for each other. Doesn't anyone ever get tired?" Sometimes, Bina admitted, "But it's easier to live when no one is alone." That sentence stayed with Nazo. She had always been a solitary creature, quiet and independent. Yet, for the first time, she wondered if maybe being alone wasn't always strength. Maybe sometimes it was just habit. One afternoon, a few days later, Shafiq accidentally dropped a tin of sugar. The grains spilled across the floor like tiny stars. Before he could sweep them, Nazo jumped down and meowed loudly, drawing his attention. "What is it, girl?" Shafiq asked. She looked from his sugar to the corner where Bina's colony lived, then back to him. It took him a moment, but he smiled and said, "Ah, I see." Instead of cleaning it all up, he left a small pile near the wall. "For your friends," he said kindly. That evening, when the sun began to set and the world turned golden, Nazo watched as Bina's workers carried the sugar grains one by one into the nest. Bina climbed up beside her. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I wanted to," Nazo replied. "Besides, it makes Shafiq happy to see me doing something useful." Bina smiled. "You're part of our story now, you know." Nazo tilted her head. "How so?" "When we tell the younger ants about the storm, we'll tell them how a giant, gentle and kind, saved our home." Nazo laughed softly. "A giant, huh? I like the sound of that." The days went on, filled with quiet company. Nazo no longer thought of the ants as small or insignificant. When she watched them now, she saw not insects but tiny lives with purpose and courage. And the ants, in their own way, had learned that even the biggest creatures could have soft hearts. When autumn came, the fields outside turned gold again. The air grew cooler. Nazo often sat under the neem tree, her fur glowing in the sunlight, while Bina's colony moved in steady rhythm nearby. They didn't talk much anymore. They didn't need to. Sometimes friendship doesn't start with similarity. It starts with a moment of kindness and stays alive through quiet understanding. And in that little courtyard between a cat and an ant, that understanding lived, small as a heartbeat, but strong as the earth beneath their feet.